Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It is Tuesday, December 31st, 2024. 2024 going out with yesterday's news beginning tomorrow. You may be listening to this podcast next year. Isn't that amazing, Kyle? Isn't that trippy? We have a lot to talk about today. A lot to talk about in what is the hardest to talk about week on the football and fantasy football calendar. Week 18, but with the fantasy season largely over, and with the motivations like muddled or unclear for like over half the league in week 18, we're going to try to sort through all of that. Takeaways from a really newsy Monday Night Football game between the 49ers and Lions. And then, really delving in who's actually trying this week, who might be resting, who might be tanking. Previewing the Saturday games, then we're going to like uncertainty kind of abounds. The Bengals at the Steelers. The Browns at the Ravens, with, I believe, by far the biggest point spread of the year. Currently 18-point favorites for Baltimore, Kyle. But before we get into all that, we have to get into Kyle's situation, Kyle's head. Because Kyle was tilted and, quote, sweating on Monday night. Had a lot on the line with his best ball bags and the Lions and 49ers. A very active text thread. And Kyle, what is your state of mind? What is your assessment of how your best ball season ended up? And why could Sam Laporta have done more?
Yeah, no, I'll take what I got from Sam Laporta. What did he score? Like 14 points. The thing is, someone had Laporta ahead of me. I was sweating my last team on DraftKings, made the final round, and I could have won half a Karain. I don't remember what Karain won. Max could have won. Actually, I was blocked by the Laporta team, so I couldn't have even won half. I could have got a 1/4 Karainer. And now instead I just need to do what I did last night 32 more times and I'll pass Curry.
Oh, hell yeah. And I will say I could practically, so last night, I feel like the sweat last night was not as intense as the sweat from Sunday Night Football, where I feel like I could hear you yelling at your television or your illegal stream through my phone. I felt like I could basically hear you screaming. We both needed more Jaden Daniels, but let's just say you really needed more Jaden Daniels on Sunday night.
Yeah, I had Drake May in my lineup. May didn't score many points at all, so all of the Jaden was gravy, right? He gets past 10, and they all start hitting the lineup. And this is a week where like 4 different quarterbacks dropped 35 points, like so many of them. So you had to have an elite quarterback performance, and I had no such thing. And so he has a good game, but the sweat was really intense getting it into overtime. Like that was the funniest possible sweat. It was very fitting that what got me in, for the most part, what got me in was a Kyle Pitts touchdown. Like one of the iconic, useless fantasy assets, wall to wall for almost the entire season. And when it all came down to it, his touchdown essentially sends the game into overtime. Jaden gets over 100 rushing yards, that is, in overtime. That's the DraftKings 3-point bonus, throws a passing touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
And put me in like top 5 place for a while. Then I just needed last night's game to not score a lot of points, like a few Laporta catches, quiet night. And at some point, who was on the call last night for the game? Who it was?
Mr. Buck and Aikman.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was Joe Buck to Aikman or whatever, but he was like, oh, Troy, this is the first game of the year where it's 5 consecutive touchdowns to open the game. I was like, you just have to be kidding me.
Yeah,
but the
they were not kidding you.
Yeah, I know, man. And Laporta touchdown ends up saving what could have otherwise been a disastrous night because, like, the weirdest players popped off, like Ricky Pearsall erupts. And then St. Brown does nothing for most of the game, scores a touchdown at the end, which was very painful. But the Laporta single touchdown made it a really good year for me. Could have been a legendary year, but was a really good year and some truly fun sweats. I had T. Higgins, and I needed that game to get into overtime for just like a few more chase catches. And he ends up going for like 50 yards and a touchdown in overtime. So some like of the most insane good run out for me, frankly. So I was happy to get to where I finished, which was like 6.
My finals were pretty much all wrapped up by Monday Night Football somehow. So I was basically viewing the game through the lens of Kyle Dvorchak. And I was like, anytime like an uncommon player did something, I was like, oh, hell yeah. I knew that Pearsall was probably bad, and he was bad for you. Like the Juszczyk touchdown.
Juszczyk one, that was big.
Yeah, that's we're printing now. No one's got Kyle Juszczyk. I bet he probably was somehow in the winning lineup. But there was a lot like They needed to feed Chris Conley, in my opinion, last night. The 49ers.
There was like an opening drive Chris Conley catch. And I was like, this is the big one, baby. This is how it all goes down. It's Chris Conley, it's Eric Saubert, and it's Kyle Juszczyk. And we did get the Juszczyk, which was nice. That one was so funny. It was so good to see Juszczyk sprinting in the end zone.
If you hear a chirping sound, by the way, Kyle, with his winnings, has purchased a new pet bird. He has a bird in his apartment.
I didn't know where it was going. That was good.
May or may not be the world's most annoying bird or smoke detector. No one can say. Everyone can say that it was a crazy Monday Night Football game. As Kyle alluded to, 74 total points between the Lions and 49ers. Kind of like the last hurrah for the 49ers, where it seemed like they were kind of treating this as their finale of like a really bad season. Like they were treating this as like their last big game, even though they have a reasonably big game. I don't think that themselves and the Cardinals really like each other, but no playoff implications for Week 18. This was the 49ers' last chance to make an imprint on the 2024 season, and they did. They pushed the Lions, but the Lions then, Kyle, kind of just confirmed the two things we know about them. Their offense is almost unstoppable. The defense can't stop anybody, due in large part to the injuries. Kirby Joseph having an amazing year. But is that like the main takeaway for this Lions game, where the Lions at 14-2 somehow face a must-win Week 18 game, a real life is not fair moment? But as we head into Week 18 and the biggest game of the year on NBC Sunday night and the playoffs, famous last words, but is this Lions offense seriously just like almost unstoppable at this point? It seems like the home road splits are gone. The dome outdoor splits are gone. Jared Goff is like, even a negative game script, Jared Goff is playing well now. It's really hard to find weaknesses in this Detroit offense.
Yeah, I think you pointed out the biggest bugaboos for Jared Goff primarily, but the Lions as a whole would have been, like you said, can they hang when they have to get into a shootout environment? And we've seen them do that. We saw them do it with the Bills. They lost, but it was not at all the offense that sputtered. It was just the defense gave up a ton of points. Another shootout environment, which they win versus the 49ers. When you're forced to pass, when Jared Goff is laid out in his bare necessities, this is just Jared Goff versus the other team. Can they stop him? And that has not been the case this year. Like you said, the home road splits have not been bad for him. The indoor-outdoor splits, they don't have many outdoor games, but the indoor-outdoor splits have not been bad. All of the Achilles heels of the offense, which is what is driving this team, have just not existed at this point. And the Achilles heel is just the defense. It's can they stop a team who really wants to score? Can they stop them from hitting 40, right? Because the Lions can push upwards towards 40. Few teams can actually do that. They're one of them. They can do it somewhat easily as any team can make it look. But the opponent could score 46. I think 46 is what the Bills got. It was like 40.
It's 48, I believe.
48. Actually. Oh, my God. Yeah. And that's going to be the big challenge for them. Maybe they'll get some help via some of their players coming back from the injuries in the playoffs. But I do think it kind of all comes down to, can they consistently win shootouts? Because even as they get some players back, they're like literally 18 players on IR, and it's a lot of defenders. So they're not going to be bottling up teams. Maybe they can stem the bleeding a little bit with some players coming back from injury, but it's ultimately going to be shootouts from here until they lose or win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the takeaway for the Lions is that got to win Sunday somehow. A game that could pretty easily lose because there's another explosive offense. The Vikings have to win, have to get that number one seed. They're a team that, as good as they are, they need help. The help in this case being one fewer playoff game. The two games they might play before the Super Bowl, both being at home. They've got to have the bye. I feel like they have any real chance of making the Super Bowl. And the bye, too, to just try to get anyone healthy, like even if it's a backup, even if it's a role player, get anyone either healthy or healthier. And then to kind of age myself, they're kind of turning into like some of like the greatest show on turf Rams teams, some of the Peyton Manning Colts teams, the first Peyton Manning team to win the Super Bowl, actually the only Colts Peyton Manning team to win the Super Bowl, did not have a good defense. And it's almost like the goal for the Lions defense to be, we're going to allow a score on this drive, but it needs to be a field goal. Like hold them to field goals is kind of becoming,
or maybe turnovers, right? Like,
yes,
can they have some big plays? I mean, Kirby Joseph has been contributing in that aspect where there were so many good Big 12 teams back in like the 2010s where they would give up a ton of points, but they would get like an incredible pick six late in the third quarter. Like Oklahoma State had a few good runs where, of course, you're in the Big 12. You do not have a good defense. But if you have like two playmakers, two guys who are first round picks, you can go out there and have one big play on defense that is enough because your offense can drop 50. And that's maybe the ceiling outcome for this defense at this point. And Kirby Joseph has been one of the like biggest contributors in that sense, where they can just get one or two more of those guys who make the random splash play on defense. That's another way to stem the bleeding, because it will never fully stop.
Yeah, they're gonna have to go big play hunting on defense, which, like Trayvon Diggs season, basically, where you're gonna try to get the pick six, where you might then give up the 60-yard touchdown. But the Lions, they got to get uncommitted. They have to be in the shootout mentality. They have to be in hold them to field goals and not touchdowns, and they got to angle for big plays. They could pull it off. They have the belief, not to go full like boomer columnist.
No, I'm here for this.
They do have the belief. Like, I think they can work with what they've got and win this, but they have to have the bye, both for health purposes, and they need the easiest road possible. It's not fair, because I think for most of the year they were probably the best overall team in the NFL. It's not really fair that they're in this situation, but that's the situation that they're in, where it's crazy to say about a 14-2 team, but they're just deeply, deeply flawed now. And they're going to need a little help, need a little luck. And, the Lions haven't had much luck in their franchise history. Part of the Lions' luck, Kyle, is that Jameson Williams had maybe the worst run out to a career of like any first-round receiver, like in the history of the NFL. We have torn ACLs, we have gambling suspensions, we have drops, we have getting arrested, basically everything conspired to make JMO a bust, and he's just refusing to do that. He is breaking out. Just another big game last night. They're using him all over the field. So I just said he's breaking out. Just kind of undercuts my question. Like, do we consider Jameson Williams just like fully broken out at this point? Like, are we witnessing? He's probably never gonna make a true wide receiver one, but is this just like a star playmaking receiver in the NFL now?
Yeah, I do think it's fair to say he's fully broken out, especially because the way he's been used in the past basically 2 months now is different from how they've been trying to use him at any point in his career. Over the first 6 weeks of the season, he had an ADOT approaching 15. That is true, like, solo job, field stretcher type of stuff. You can still be really good in that role, but it limits how much you can contribute on a play-to-play basis. Since I think that was week 6, since then, over about 2 months of football, reasonably large sample for the small sample game we play, it's right around 11. That's like true number one receiver stuff. That's where you want like your Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases. He's not going to rival them in terms of raw targets because they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. But the fact that if you just need 7 yards on a play, in week 3, I'm like, Jameson Williams is not your guy if you're specifically gunning for 7. But they are using him in a number of creative ways and just letting him run a pretty varied route tree compared to what he had been doing over the first 2 years. They were very limited 2 years of his career. So I do think he's fully broken out. And to your point, it's almost unfortunate that he finds himself as still a number 2 receiver, because he's doing enough that I think he could be. We're going to.
I don't know if he could be like a true number 1, even on a team that didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's still something gimmicky. Really, it's not gimmicky. I guess it's difficult to call it. Maybe it's just the frame that I'm biased against.
Sure.
It is still kind of a boom bust game. So like JMO, he's only 23. He turns 24 in March. Like, without looking at a list, like off the top of your head, like intellectually, what is Jameson Williams in dynasty leagues? Wide receiver 23, wide receiver 18. Is he more like pushing top 12 status? Just what feels right for Jameson Williams for you in dynasty leagues?
I feel like I'm at least top 15 because 23. Was he one of the guys who entered the league as like literally a 20-year-old, or at least
he was very, very young, because he turns 24 in March, but he entered the league I guess his entire rookie year he's 21, which is what
I was going to say. Yeah. He left college at 20, had turned 21 by the time he actually played his first NFL snap. Had turned 21 for a while because he didn't play most of that year. So yeah, I mean, a 23-year-old with like a top 20 yards per route run season, who's going to have a wide receiver 2+ fantasy season under his belt already, in an elite offense that has not, I definitely think a year ago I would have questioned, well, how much more can we get out of this offense? It is ultimately Jared Goff. I don't think you can say that anymore. Maybe the impending loss of Ben Johnson is a reason to keep him outside of like the top 12 if you want to do that, or top 15 if you want to do that. But I don't know. I see an extremely talented player who's putting up fantasy points. It's not like I think he's talented. We just need the right things to happen. He's both talented and capitalizing on that talent in a really good situation Yeah, top 15 at least. You could like sell me on the fact that a 23-year-old who's going to consistently be a wide receiver 2 should be the wide receiver 12 for Dynasty.
I will just say with JMO, there is the risk, even at 23 years old, that we could be seeing a career year. Just the volatile skill set, kind of the volatile personality. That's more difficult to weigh in on. But a guy who's already, again, he's going for like a Yahtzee of suspensions. Like we've already had the PED, or have we had the PED? I think we
No, correct. That was the one earlier.
PED,
this year.
gambling, and I could get personal conduct.
Yeah. That one doesn't seem like it'll happen, but the fact that it was a news bulletin is not good.
No. JMO, by the way, our friend Patrick Hurain, wide receiver 21. I could see maybe an argument for as electric as Jameson Williams is to maybe sell high in Dynasty, but that's not very fun. He's so young and so explosive, but
agreed.
I wouldn't be stunned if this were like a career year for Jameson Williams. But I mean, listen, if he stays healthy and stays out of trouble, then this will not be a career year. Basically, like he's going to have a better year because he's just that explosive, that electric of a player. So we're rooting for Jameson Williams going forward in our Dynasty leagues. Dynasty is going to be a real crazy situation with these 49ers receivers, Kyle, because this is one of the craziest wide receiver situations I think I've ever seen in multi-year leagues, where you have Brandon Ayuk, who's still young, coming off major injury. You have Debo, who's probably going to be a salary cap casualty. Is that kind of the conventional wisdom on Debo?
So right now, I looked it up. They would only save $5 million while splitting $30 million up over 2 years if they designate him post June 1. Which, sometimes you need to save $5 million and just treat not be.
Well, sometimes you need to clear a log jam too.
Yeah, not be a victim to the sunk cost fallacy and recognize that they have now 3 other receivers who could start, but it is such a minimal gain of cap space that I wouldn't be surprised if they restructure or just stick with him, right? And then Juwan.
I was just saying, so uncertain with Ayuk, uncertain with Debo. You have a late career breakout in Juwan Jennings, who then was extended, and you have Ricky Pearsall, who's had a pretty talk about an uneven rookie year, not on the field to begin the year. Then he debuts, has a big game or two, then just really disappears. And kind of out of nowhere last night, doubles up his previous career highs as like a true alpha performance, 841. I think at least one touchdown, Kyle. How do we make heads or tails of this 49ers receiver core for Dynasty League purposes?
That's so tough. I don't. You know what? I'm going to say Ricky Pearsall, first-round rookie, who I didn't honestly love him as a prospect, but other people really did think he was worthy of being a first-round pick, who was on a team of a lot of older veteran wide receivers, one of whom, Deebo Samuel, is coming off of a down year in all respects, one of whom, Juwan Jennings, is coming off of the only real good year of his career, and one of whom, Brandon Ayuk, is just coming off of a catastrophic injury. There are a lot of paths for him to make a big impact in his second season. Feels like, maybe this game inflated his dynasty value so much that you can't buy, but I kind of feel like there's a case to be made to buy him. He is the youngest, highest upside of the bunch.
So he's young, but he's turning 25 in September. He will be very old for a second-year pro. One of the only real bugaboos with Ricky Pearsall. Continue.
No, I was about done. I think like Debo feels like he's on the way out. This year has just been. I know he's ticked up a little bit at the end of this season, like this past few weeks, but really, it just doesn't look like he's got much left in the tank, even if they,
or at least he doesn't have much left in the tank with the 49ers for whatever reason, Kyle.
Yeah, maybe there's someone out there who can really make some more out of him. But the fact that he doesn't have much left in the tank, and you can very much see a path to Ricky Pearsall just overtaking him. The role would not look awfully similar, but the fact that they have another guy waiting in the wings makes him that much more likely to, even if he doesn't get traded or cut or whatever, to just slowly be phased out next year.
Tried to trade Brandon Ayuk this year. We tried to sell low on Brandon Ayuk in my Dynasty League and didn't really pursue it that far, but there wasn't a whole lot of interest. But what do you think? This is going really off topic. We talked about it at the time. I still can't figure out how I feel about, I was pursuing a title this year. I was very injured, but it was still right in the middle of my Dynasty League window where I had too many guys who just weren't playing. And I made a risky trade. They're only 1 year apart in age, but you remember the time I traded Rashee Rice for Devontae Smith. And I still just don't know how to feel about that because I got third. I did not win. And I do you think that's going to be next summer? I'm man, I just really, really wish wish like I had not been a prisoner of the moment and I had just continued to play for, because I'm normally pretty conservative in Dynasty. I love my young players, but do you think I'll regret that? Or was that like still kind of a perfect just let it ride situation? Like make the trade and worry about it later.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. I was on your side of, I think you made the right move at the time. And yeah, we're not going to see Rashee Rice until the middle of next year at best. They're going to bring him on. Go ahead. Did you have thoughts?
No, is it really that? I think we might see him in week 1, but
he's also
he was plus. I know on the injury front, like ACL plus, MCL plus, but I guess he is on the older side too. I guess he is very, very questionable for week 1. We don't know for sure with Rashee Rice. I'll say, right? I wouldn't totally rule out week 1 for Rashee Rice.
Oh, I would rule out week 1 with 100% certainty, and he's got a suspension incoming too. There's just no way he avoids a suspension.
I won the trade. Yeah, I won the trade.
And it's not going to be a light suspension either. I can't imagine. Like I would set the line at 5.5 games or 4.5 games potentially. So suspension, injury, and not a really exciting offense that he's returning to. They've looked better as of 2 or 3 games lately.
Hold on. The Patrick Mahomes offense will probably be. I still think this is the abnormality in the Chiefs offense. This is still not the new normal. This is still, even if it goes on seriously for like 2 or 3 years, I still think this is the exception to the Chiefs rule, and they're going to come out of this sooner rather than later. And like this is a necessity what they're doing right now, but this is not how they want to play offense, and they will be more explosive again. Patrick Mahomes is still I just noticed that he's the all-time leader in yards per game, even still, even after like the downcast nature of the past year and a half. I do think the Chiefs are going to come out the other side of this. Sorry,
I don't know. At this point, we've been saying this for like 20 consecutive months.
It's been a while.
And it's not like they were awfully explosive when they had Rashee Rice, both last year and even to start this year. I don't know. I mean, he was doing great in the confines of the offense. He had like 2 100-yard games in his first 3 appearances. He'll be fine with the existence of this offense. I mean, frankly, the way this offense plays might work in his favor, as ugly as it is. But he's not like, I would rather have a Bengals wide receiver holding all else equal. Like the Bengals are playing fun, awesome football, and the Chiefs are just getting by. I do think that at some point the Chiefs will stop with this just getting by stuff in terms of how they play offense, but they have no need to. They're going to easily win their next Super Bowl. Like, why?
But even the Chiefs, I think, are going to take the view, like, yes, we can win this way, but it would still be easier to win with an explosive offense. Like, no one, I think, truly chooses to play this way.
No, totally agree.
The fact that they can do it is a superpower, of course, but I still think they're like choosing to play this way, and that surely they're going to have better personnel and injury luck and all that. Travis Kelce might be about to retire, though. I don't know. We'll see. The Chiefs are an interesting.
Might be part of the problem at this point, the way they're playing. Like he looks like a guy who plays.
He is kind of slowing them down, I think, maybe. I
mean, the thing is, he moves the chains, and like getting able to lock up a 7-yard gain is really valuable, and he can still mostly do that. But like he does, having him out there decreases your explosive play rate. It just has to, because he is no threat to do that.
Real quick to wrap this game. Brock Purdy, was it elbow? I got hand.
Yeah, nerve damage in his elbow.
He's out week 18. It doesn't seem like a long-term injury, but he is out week 18, Kyle.
So what was the injury he suffered versus the Eagles 2 playoffs ago? It was an elbow.
It was elbow damage. I don't know if it was full UCL Tommy John. It might have been. He had some pretty severe elbow damage. Yeah, it was a UCL injury. I don't know if it was full Tommy John.
I don't think they johned him.
So,
but yeah, so the fact, I mean, maybe these are unrelated.
It was internal brace surgery. Which is like the new
internal brace. Yeah. The fact that he's suffering like a weird, like quarterbacks don't suffer elbow injuries. It's not a real thing. No. So the fact that he's suffered 2 of them, which are going to be costly injuries. Like obviously this one doesn't matter out of the playoffs, but it's going to cost him actual time. He's not just ringing it out on the sideline. He's missing time with both. Doesn't feel great.
No, it doesn't feel, and it's not well timed for a guy who I think will get signed long term, but
he'll get it.
He's going into negotiations at kind of a weak point. We're going into the motivation tracker after a short break. We'll be right back after this. The NFC's number 1 seed is on the line this Sunday evening when the Vikings take on the Lions in Detroit Rock City. Coverage of the showdown that wraps up the regular season begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Yeah, he tore his ACL. I don't think they Tommy John'd him, though. They did something weird with Brock Purdy's elbow. have to look into that more after the show. We're looking into very powerfully now, Kyle, which teams are actually trying in Week 18, because the fantasy redrafts regular season is pretty much over. But a lot of people do have leagues go through week 18, either in the traditional head-to-head format. I'm in a points-only league. My main league is a points-only league going through this Sunday. DFS still very much in play. By the way, there's like a snowstorm bearing down on the Midwest America apparently this weekend. You might need something to do on Sunday. So we're still very interested in what is happening with all these teams. It's just so hard to sort through who is trying, who is tanking, who is resting. Let's just begin, Kyle, with which teams are clearly resting for Week 18 this weekend.
Clearly resting are the Eagles, locked up the number 2 seed, the Chiefs locked up the number 1 seed, the Bills locked up a number 2 seed, and the Texans locked up a number 4 seed. And then right before we got on the show, I saw Sean McVay was saying it's trending toward them sitting their starters as well. Coaches sit their starters after telling you they're going to start them every single time. So the fact that he's already toying with the idea of sitting as starters makes me think that's 100% what they're going to do. They actually can move up or prevent their seeding from being moved down. They're number 3 right now. They could move to number 4 with a loss and a Bucs win. I actually think I mean, maybe it's not worth it to move around your seeding if you bust up your quarterback's elbow, for instance. But the number 4 seed in the NFC plays the loser of Vikings-Lions, which I think is the second or third best team in the NFL, probably, or the first best team, potentially.
Yes, it's possible, yes.
But it seems like they are more worried about having someone get hurt than potentially getting a better matchup, understandably so. So those are the now probably 5 teams that have essentially nothing to play for and have either told us or we can infer that they are not starting any starters.
Do we think the Eagles might give Saquon Barkley a shot at this record, or
no?
I don't think so either, even though I don't know if they're truly thinking this way. You get the schedule, you play the schedule that you're given, and the 17 games thing versus 16 for Eric Dickerson is a bit unseemly. So I don't think they would let that bother them under normal circumstances. But I also think if this was game 16 and game 17, if everything else was the same, they had the seed locked up, if it had been like a real game, quote unquote, I think they might have let him pursue the record. The fact that it's like this extra game, I don't think they probably feel that guilty about it. I think that like almost tie breaks against like letting him pursue history basically. And like, whatever, someone's going to break the Dickerson record, but it's not going to be Saquon this year. And also we're going to quit while we're ahead with our running back's health. Like the fact that Saquon has made it to week 18, almost in perfect health, is such an accomplishment. And but Jalen Hurts struggling and then hurt, he'll be healthy for the playoffs, of course. He's just clearly going to be the focal point of their offense for the playoffs. So I sort of wonder if, like, at least in the first quarter, he nuked the Giants the first time they played. If he rips off like 2 20-yard runs in the first quarter, they might, all right. Like, we'll see. Let's see what happens here.
How many does he need? I don't know the exact number.
He needs 101 to break the record. 100 to tie Eric Dickerson.
It is so attainable, like you said.
If it was a real game, he would be breaking the record. Like, it'd be clearly he'd be getting like 34 carries. Like they would give him the ball until he broke the record.
Totally. I don't think there's any chance he plays. I think there's zero shot they even have.
So you don't think he even gets a carry? So no. The over-under Saquon carries is 0.5, Kyle.
I think it's 0.5, and I think I take the under, yeah. I don't think they're playing.
I think I am going to hit the over on that. If he kind of like, why even do that? Yeah, you might be right. He might.
Well, the thing is, if he doesn't play, it'll just void anyways. So
yeah, that's true. So, well, no, I just meant, I guess that they're not going to let him like dip his toe in.
Also, what would be the point of either plays and gets
magical
the record
or
he doesn't? Yeah,
it's magical thinking for me. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, we're not going to see Saquon. Yeah, the Chiefs. By the way, okay, listen, we'll talk about this more on Sunday. But what's the line? I'm trying to look it up here. What is the line on this Chiefs game?
9.5. It was the last time I saw it. That was like a day ago.
The
so
Chiefs,
it might be a little outdated.
Let's just be real. The Chiefs are easily covering this 9.5 point line with Carson Wentz. And I think they're very live to outright win. Just to be
it would be so honest. Chiefs after not trying at all this year and steamrolling teams. I mean, I guess they won every game narrowly, but the record is that they steamrolled everyone they played outside of literally one team. Not trying and not looking great and winning every game to then play your backups and easily knock the Broncos out of the playoffs.
But you at least cover, man. Like, come on, man. Like they're covering 9.5.
Oh, this is my thought too. I totally agree.
That's funny. We'll talk about that more on Thursday, though. So those are the teams that are clearly resting. Which teams in Week 18 have the most to play for? of course, we don't really need to throw out that the Lions and Vikings have a lot to play for. They have a lot to play for, the number 1 seed in the NFC. Who else has the most to play for in Week 18, Kyle?
Broncos win, and they're in the playoffs. Very simple. Broncos lose, and then it comes down to Bengals win, Dolphins lose. Bengals make it. Dolphins just need a win. So both, there are 3 of them, Dolphins, Broncos, Bengals, all playing with their lives on the line. Some of them need help, but it doesn't mean they won't be going full force. And I didn't actually look at what times these games are, but the NFL generally does schedule these games so there can't be a ton of scoreboard watching. So they go off.
These games are at 4:25 Eastern. Both
All
the
of them?
Dolphins and the Broncos play at 4:25 Eastern.
Okay, yep, there you go. So yeah, there's no team will know that they're eliminated at any point, right? So those are the teams that that's the only playoff, like the playoff contending that's going on. Oh, Bucks Falcons is the other one where those teams can actually be bounced out of the playoffs outright. So Bucks win and they're in, Falcons win and Bucks lose and the Falcons are in. Kind of simple ones there. On top of that,
that's in the 1 p.m. Eastern slate, by the way. So we do have a little drama. Well, we don't have any drama, man, because the Bucks.
I know.
By the way, the Bucks line has gone down. Actually, they began at -14. It's down to -13. Some movement towards the Saints.
That's
I wonder if they think Derek Carr is going to like surprise play or something.
No, there's no way, but maybe that's why
Carr Olave could surprise play.
Also true, yeah. They have guys who could surprise play. I really do not think they will.
What if Carr Olave and Kamara all play? That would be
so funny.
You got to get -13 while it's still out there.
It won't be out there
plus
long.
13.
Folks.
Excuse me. You got to get plus 13
I didn't think
while it's still out there.
So those are the ones that are like win and you're in, lose and you're out type of situations. Then there's some seeding shuffling going on as well. The Ravens and the Steelers are both still contending for the AFC North crown. Ravens get it with a win. Steelers need the Ravens to lose, and then they need to win as well. Obviously, you get home field advantage and the number 3 seed, right? Number 3. Yeah. So you definitely obviously want that. But even if the Ravens win, the Steelers still want to protect the number 5 seed. That's what they would hold if they win. If they lose and the Chargers win, they fall from 5 to 6. Doesn't sound like that much. You're playing on the road for basically the entire playoffs, unless like the 7 seed comes out and is squirrely or whatever. But the number 5 seed gets to play this lifeless, awful Texans team. And I would really rather play them than play the Ravens in my
the Ravens or the Bills. I guess the Bills are locked into the number 2 seed, so not the Bills. Yeah, there's a huge. Like, you're basically getting eliminated if you're playing the Ravens. I mean,
yeah,
not that the Ravens have the most like glittering postseason history, but you're probably getting eliminated. I mean, too, they just got annihilated by the Ravens last weekend. The Steelers.
Yeah, we have evidence of which team you want to play as recently as 4 days ago, or whatever it was, and you want to play the Texans. Like, as good as the Ravens look, the Texans look equally bad, right? They're like so diametrically opposed. So yeah, I do think the Steelers will want to protect that 5 seed, although they're also still gunning for the 3.
Producer Adam might need to weigh on this one in the chat. The Dolphins are only 1.5 point favorites. It's on the road against the Jets, but I mean, is that just saying like they don't think Tua is going to play?
Yes, that's absolutely what it's saying.
You really think? I mean, man, would they be favored with Tyler Huntley? I mean, they're favored at all with Tyler Huntley. I don't. That's like a squirrely line to me where I can't quite divine the intentions of the bettors and bookmakers with this one, because
it's not the only injury.
I feel like you got to get on the like sit or get off the pot and kind of that one. Like if it's Tua, they should be dogs. I think. I mean, if not Tua, they should be dogs.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, man, Tyler Huntley. I don't know. The Browns are awful. It doesn't say anything to beat the Browns, but they did clean up against them. Defense is good too. So
I mean, this is potentially the very final game of Aaron Rodgers' career. That's true. That producer Adam points out another reason the line is so weird. It's because the Dolphins could already be eliminated. So the game could have like no meaning for them. So that is I think that's right. Is that right, Kyle?
It's whenever the Broncos play. I don't have the schedule in front of me. If the Broncos play at 1, they could know. Yeah.
The Broncos do play at 4:25.
They should know that, or they should not know then.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Anyways, that's why the line is so squirrely.
I mean, you've also got Waddle injury, which these are only going to shave like fractions of points on the line because it's wide receivers, but Tyreek Hill and Waddle both banged up as well. Hill's been playing through it. He'll definitely do it again. Waddle much more so on the questionable side of things. So yeah, so many moving parts.
Which teams might be tanking on side? Like this kind of is Patriots coded, or like we might see Drake May. Like we might
come on. Like
I
have a little dignity.
Them, to be honest, either. I don't know. I actually don't think teams should outright tank. I think it is bad. And I do think like if anyone's banged up, then you sit them. So once the game starts, you cannot tank. You actually do have to go all out to win, which it's so unfortunate when it happens like the Texans 2 years ago and they happen to win. I think once the game starts, you do have to treat it like a must win. You don't have to do it before the game though, and you can err against resting people who might be resting people like who has nothing to play for just beyond the Patriots, or is it only the Patriots?
No, I mean, the Titans have already, or Brian Callahan has already said that we'll see both Mason Rudolph and Will Levis play. That doesn't
seem like kind of a goodbye present to Will Levis.
Oh, yeah. And so I guess it's definitely tanking. Giving if you believe one of your quarterbacks is better, not giving them 100% of the reps is very clearly tanking. The Browns and the Giants are both in positions.
Browns. Yeah, neither team wants to win this game.
Well, everything they do is tanking anyways. They don't have a choice not to tank. We're going all out with DTR this week, or we're tanking playing Bailey Zappi. Both of those are functionally tanking. And the same, I guess, is true of the Giants, albeit Drew Lock did play out of his freaking mind last week. It was insane.
He went totally bonkers.
But on the whole, starting Drew Lock still means you're tanking. So those teams, I don't know which quarterback we'll see for the Browns. I think Stefanski said as much that they could play both. They're still toying.
They're throwing out the Z word, Bailey Zappi. That's when you know when Dorian Thompson-Robinson isn't enough, you start talking about Bailey Zappi. People might not remember Bailey Zappi is genuinely that bad. He's probably worse than DTR, just to be honest.
I have the numbers on this. I believe DTR is worse, but they're both very, very exquisitely bad. It's bad backup quarterback play. Since 2018, just shy, I think 96 quarterbacks have 200 dropbacks, I think is the number I set. 96, I believe 96 overall is DTR in EPA per play, and then 95 overall is DTR in CPOE. But you only have to move up 5 spots to find Bailey Zappi in terms of EPA. They are both in the bottom cluster of the worst quarterbacks. Zappi has been far more accurate in terms of just completion percent over your expected, basically adjusting for average depth of target. Still bad, but sort of in the middle of the backup pack, essentially. But he makes so many mistakes that who cares? He just turns the ball over, takes a ton of sacks. Seriously, a 4% interception rate, which is that's a slightly below average touchdown rate, let alone for interceptions, and a 9% sack rate, which is also super high. So sure, he's quote more accurate. It doesn't really matter.
Some other light tanking risks, I would say. So the 49ers with Purdy already out. I wouldn't be shocked that we don't see a lot of the principals in the second half. We could see the 49ers throttling off people. The Jets, if Aaron Rodgers gets his 500 touchdown in the first quarter, the Jets honestly might pack it. They might. I don't even know how they'll expect the crowd to react. Or they might pull Rodgers out of the game to have a stirring goodbye kind of moment too. Yeah, producer Adam points out that's another reason for the squirrely Dolphins-Jets line, where I would not take it for granted that the Jets finished this game. The Raiders got weird stuff.
Raiders want to lose, but they're still
they also Antonio Pierce's his job's on the line.
Yeah.
This weird. There's weird stuff going on here.
So the funniest thing is all of these quote tanking teams are so bad that they're just already tanking, and they've been doing so forever. What
are we getting from the Colts? The Colts won't be tanking as Steichen's coaching for his job too.
The Colts will go full out. They were obviously, as you mentioned, eliminated from the playoffs last week. Maybe the only quote tanking thing they could do is play it safe with Ant and hold him out. But they're another level of I kind of do think Ant is just better than Flacco at this point because the Flacco mistakes are so bad. But the Ant accuracy issues are so terrible that I don't know which one of these guys is better at winning football games. So I don't know if they could clearly tell you what is their best tanking option.
Final one here. The Packers are favored by 8.5 against the Bears. So clearly the bookmakers think the Packers are going all out to win this game. Is that for seeding purposes? Is that to avoid the Lions, Vikings?
So they can still move between the 6 and 7 seed. It is pretty minor, frankly. But ultimately, you do want the higher seed when avoiding these super juggernaut teams. The number 6 would have you play the Eagles. The number 7, or I guess no, number 7 plays Eagles. 7 matches up with 2. 6 plays the Rams probably or something. Yeah,
they do.
So that's you want that. You want to play the Rams or potentially the Bucks over the Eagles, obviously. And then, of course, the higher you move up, the better your odds are of playing a worse team as they reseed throughout the playoffs.
Exactly. And just too, if there's chaos, you might actually get to host a game. You might get to host the NFC Championship game
Yeah, so both them and the Commanders are locked into the 6 and 7 seeds. The Commanders have the edge in terms of that 6-7 seed battle right now, but they can flip around, and getting better matchups obviously does mean something. So I guess short leashes is probably what you'd say for both of those teams. Like Love goes out and takes an awkward hit, which he has done a few times this year already.
To do that,
maybe he doesn't play the second half, but they are playing like they want to move up in the seeding, understandably so.
And they're getting that respect from our nation's bookmakers. So yeah, we tried to make sense of all that. We'll continue to try to make sense of that on the website, rotoworld.com, and both in blurb form. And check out Kyle's article, which probably won't need to update a ton, but will be updated as develops merit. So yeah, Saturday, we've got a 2-game slate. It begins with the Bengals at the Steelers. 48.5 game total. That's pretty good by week 18 standards. Bengals favored by 1.5, which do you think they'd be favored by 1.5 if the Steelers had to win and get in? Or do you think the Bengals being favored has a little to do with people just being a little uncertain if the Steelers are going to truly go all out in this game, even though, like we said, they're going to want to avoid the Ravens? That seems like a slightly squirrely line to me. The game is in Pittsburgh, not Cincinnati. So that's
I think the Steelers are going all out. They want the AFC North crown. And did we talk about this on the show or before the show? Mike Tomlin is not a sitting his starters kind of guy.
This is before the show, yeah. He's not.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's just not in his DNA. I mean, it's very similar to Dan Campbell. The Monday game meant quite next to nothing. I think there was winning it leaves a tie open to them in week 18. A tie is beneficial, whereas losing it takes tie off the table. That doesn't really matter. It was essentially a meaningless game. There was zero way Dan Campbell was sitting as starters for that game.
I will also say, this is the most pointless interjection ever. I think it might have not been pointless to them, and that they're still trying to figure out how to play and win in this diminished state of their roster. So they might have viewed it as an opportunity, a pretty important data point. How are we going to win these games?
I mean, Steelers are kind of at that point right now where they got Pickens back last week, but you wouldn't have really known it by watching them play football. We've seen Russ play, frankly, pretty well when they have Pickens in the lineup, and then the offense completely collapsed because he's their only functional skill position player, and they didn't uncollapse last week. So I also think they're a team that just needs to work stuff out and figure out how to get Pickens back going, because they just don't they're not going to get Freiermuth going, right?
You kind of already answered my question. It's should we treat the Steelers as a collapsed offense, and just how much do we really trust them? 2-game DFS slate on Saturday. Can we even really trust the Steelers? It's a great matchup in the Bengals, but have we just lost all faith in the Steelers offense, Kyle?
It's risky. I think there's a lot of risk that the magic they had in a few really fun Russ starts is gone. But as you said, the matchup itself is great. The total gives us confirmation for 8.5 that it's really good. The last time they played was a high 30 to low 40 score, 44 to 38 or something.
Right. The Bengals made the Steelers look like a juggernaut, which is not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I assume that was another one of the awesome Pickens to Russ games. I know Russ did have a really good game there. So yeah, I think it's risky for sure that they just don't figure things out. And they we talk about this a lot. It's a great matchup for the Steelers to get things right, but also playing a defunct Steelers offense is a great way for the Bengals to get stuff going, either as they head into the offseason or maybe into the playoffs. But I kind of like taking the gamble, especially if we're talking about it in a DFS context, or I'm picking up Nico Remigio off the wire for week 18 because the Chiefs, most people would know this, he's a practice squad plus level guy.
Is this real? Is this a real guy?
He's a practice squad plus kind of guy, a special teamer for the Chiefs who's rarely ever active, but he's going to be their number one receiver because they're going to sit obviously all of the big names, and 5 of their guys contribute on wide receivers alone. Hollywood Brown runs 30 routes and is the most important player. He's sitting. DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, do you think I was wondering if Hollywood might play a few series, just conditioning, just still kind of getting more in the game, or I wonder if maybe they view the past 2 weeks as having accomplished that, and then maybe a good time to get him a rest. Hollywood has been a player where I'm wondering if he might get a few series.
I think he's done enough over the past 2 weeks that I don't think he'll even get a series. I actually thought about this one too, but I don't think. If he had just come back last week and got 10 snaps, I actually do think a few series would be totally reasonable. I don't really think we'll see that. So they're going to try out true backups. I would still trust George Pickens in a hopefully rebounding offense over doing some sick waiver wire stuff because it's week 18.
Nico Remigio, by the way, he has 4 caps this year, 4 appearances, 0 catches or targets. So we'll see.
Yeah. He's rarely active, and when he is, it's for special teams. the Eagles are going to trot out some real fun receivers too. So I'm still trusting Pickens over those types of players.
Would Remigio be a cash or GPP play?
Oh, he's. I guess we're gonna have a lot of good, quote, good wide receiver plays at 3,000. I kind of
he's a GPP. He's the GPPer, I guess, to be clear, because he'd have to be a GPP player.
No, buddy, we're firing him up. No, I mean, look, I am going to be crate digging through some of these awful teams. Like Aniyah Smith, rookie wide receiver on the Eagles, is getting run this weekend.
This is insane.
I will be here for it. I'm going to be here for all of these guys. Like Tyrell Shavers, who caught a long touchdown in
Tyrell Shavers is going bonkers. He's both cash. He's a cash play.
He's just locked. Like you don't even need what does he own? 80% practice squad wide receivers. 80%. That's 20% too low. Should be 100.
Yeah, Shavers is a cash play this weekend. Real quick on this game, Chase Brown health update. Seems like he's gonna play after his misguided slide. The worst ever slide,
man.
The worst ever slide. I feel like both from a process and outcome standpoint. Was it a bad? I still can't decide if it was a bad process play.
No, it was. I think process wise, it was fine because they could have burned up a good amount, if not all of the time. But his injury causes the clock to stop.
That's right. Yeah.
If his injury doesn't cause the clock to stop, they have a much more advantageous clock burning situation. But because they couldn't bleed any time, they were like, well, I guess we just have to go back in and score anyways. So I don't know if it was a perfect process, right? But I feel
like teams really, really overestimate the ability of these other teams to go 80 yards and score a touchdown. I don't, man, like maybe to score the touchdown. And like, don't be such a doomer about your own defense.
But they gave up the 80 yards in the touchdown, right? Also, because you're the Bengals defense, maybe that changes the calculus of how you should view it a little bit. A very good defense, like go ahead, stop them from going 80 yards and scoring. The Bengals are like, we'll be doing no such thing. This is overtime.
We will get a practice report on Tuesday on Chase Brown. No, actually, maybe it won't be till Wednesday, even though it's on Saturday. Anyway, Chase Brown's a keep it locked to Rotoworld player because it seems like the early tea leaves say he's going to play.
I forget which reporter it was. I want to say it was Ian Rappaport said after the game, within a few hours, I think, that they don't, or maybe it was Sunday morning. I don't remember when this game was played. He said that it was not considered a serious or major injury. I still don't know if that means he's going to play, but like your life on the line and your injury is not considered.
He's going to play.
He's going to play, right?
We're going to see. He might immediately depart the game in the first quarter, Chase Brown, but he's going to play. He's going to attempt to play. Keep it locked to this podcast. We'll be right back after this. Conference play heats up on the hardwood as we enter the new year. Catch a Big East showdown this Sunday when Providence takes on two-time defending national champion UConn at 2 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. UConn is playing much better when last we left them in Maui, and they went 0 for 3, and Danny Hurley went into week-long meltdown mode. They've got it together, so check them out versus Providence on Peacock as you're channel surfing between the games. One final game for us to talk about before we get into Thursday mode and previewing the entire slate with Denny Carter. By the way, I feel like I haven't mentioned Denny. I was wondering if people were yet. We finally fired Denny. He's gone. Yeah, no, he's back on Thursday. He's been skiing in Quebec. Part of the bourgeoisie elite. Denny Carter is finally coming back to talk football. Jerry Jeudy. Do we get one final big send-off in what is ostensibly a good matchup? And a Ravens defense that's allowed a lot of passing production this year, but has been tightening up of late and could just like totally tee off on DTR and Bailey Zappi. How do we feel about Jerry Jeudy? DTR, he didn't figure out Jerry Jeudy in game one. He did figure out Jerry Jeudy in game two. I'm going to get this guy the ball a ton. How do we feel about
Boy, did he ever. 18 targets. 18 is insane. He wanted the Joe Flacco to Amari Cooper legacy game, but he's DTR, and he couldn't quite make it work. He still gets 12 for 96 scoreless, I believe. So, especially in PPR, I think in PPR, Jerry Jeudy's a perfectly fine play. But, this is what standard is. Anytime touchdown bet, brutally bad. This is just the worst. There are so many good candidates for this is the worst quarterback room we've seen. Drew Lock single-handedly got the Giants out of that with one great game. I think Spencer Rattler's putting up a very good fight for this is the worst quarterback situation. But I think my pick is the Browns. And I think for that reason, you are only starting Jeudy as I'm pretty sure I can get 6 to 8 catches as a minimum out of him. Albeit the risk is that, like you said 2 weeks ago, it was like 2 or 3 catches on just a handful of targets. That's a risk. But the fact that DTR did the thing, right? He learned okay, I got hurt. I think he got banged up 2 weeks ago.
He did.
I
thought the backup quarterback prophecy was coming to fruition a little too easily. Like, oh man, you gotta put up more of a fight than that, and he did. He did.
So yeah, the two options. Option A is you as a backup quarterback get hurt. Option B is you target your wide receiver 15 plus times. He went with option A, getting hurt. Oh, slightly.
It's true. I forgot he hit both my tenets of backup quarterback play.
Yeah. So he went with option A 2 weeks ago. He was just slightly banged up. He ended up I think playing through it or whatever, but got a little banged up. He got a taste of option A and said, that sucked. And he option B'd last week with 18, literally 18 targets. Yeah, Jeudy is a fine play, even as bad as the offense is, and it's going to be bad.
It's very bad. So what's the injury situation in the Browns backfield, by the way? Is Jerome Ford got hurt? Am I hallucinating?
No. He got hurt. He returned for. I literally just read his.
He returned to the game.
He returned for one offensive snap. I don't think he touched the ball at all in the second half. But he was, I believe, got listed as questionable or went into halftime as uncertain to return. And quote, did return, albeit barely played. I think that's just to keep it locked to Rotoworld. Although, what would be the point of you playing Deonta Foreman?
We'll say, yeah, Ford is the only. That's basically what we need to say. If Ford doesn't play, you don't even look at the Browns backfield. Do not even look at the Browns backfield.
Yeah, totally.
Any final thoughts on this Ravens offense heading into the playoffs? They've been lower volume of late, still pretty efficient. Is there anything to say on this Baltimore offense where Lamar Jackson appears to be not coasting, but advancing towards his third MVP?
Yeah, it does look like it's going that way. And I think the Ravens not having the crazy funnest games of the year over the past month or so is purely a product of the defense playing a lot better. Truly going from one of the worst passing defenses. They faced a lot of volume and that kind of juices the numbers, but one of the worst passing defenses for 2 months and change to a legitimately good defense over the past month. So that puts a little less pressure on the offense. I also think once they get into the playoffs and they start seeing good teams, they match up with the Bills, sure, the defense has played better. Josh Allen's going to eat it alive. I don't care. So when they get into fun games, I still think they'll be able to contribute in terms of defense giving up points and obviously offense putting up plenty.
Yeah, Lamar, 15, 23, and 25 attempts over his past 3 games. That's because they played the Giants, the Steelers on short rest without George Pickens, and then just the ghost of the Houston Texans also on short rest. So yeah, I don't think the Ravens defense has magically been fixed. It probably is better. There's no way it can continue to be quite as bad as it had been.
Totally agree. You get the good schedule. Hey, we talk about this all the time. Good defenses take advantage of the easy matchups, and they did that. Somehow Texans are an easy matchup. Steelers, obviously, without George Pickens were. You said Giants was the other one.
Yes,
Week 3 Ravens might have given up the legacy Drew Lock game. They obviously did not when they played. So defense is getting better. Defense also did get an advantageous schedule. So both things I think are true.
Good stuff from the Ravens. Really good stuff from Kyle Dvorchak, who's going to be all over our website this week. What are you publishing this week? What's your publishing schedule besides your motivation tracker?
I did waivers in case anyone wants to. Also, you can just use it for other purposes, like for DFS. Here's what some of the big stuff that happened last week was. So waivers is up. The motivation report will keep updating. I have to go in and update it for the Rams right now because that's going to drop right before we got on. And I'll still do start sit. I'll give you my favorite Nico Remigias.
Yeah, I'm going to do my rankings, but just full disclosure, it's very hard to do in week 18. And also the motivation, talking about motivation level, it's kind of hard.
I'm adding you to the motivation.
When the fantasy season's over, when you can't make heads or tails of what half the teams are doing, when you genuinely don't know who's going to play, week 18 rankings are quite a chore. But they will be on the site. I'm going to give it my best shot. But just know that it's not like a normal rankings process. It's very hard to do in week 18. But they will be up on the site. So for Kyle, I'm Pat. Thank you so much for listening. We're finally welcoming Danny Carter back to the United States of America on Thursday. We will talk to you then.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.